Hey, good evening, Miss Moses. Good evening, John. Hello, everyone.
Doing?
How are you? I'm not going to be available by camera this evening, but I am here.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
present.
I'm disappointed about that.
Oh, so sorry. Hi, Warren. How are you?
Hi, Mia. How are you? Hello, everybody. How's everyone?
Good.
Good evening.
Is that
Hey, Suki.
Suki?
How are you?
It is
I think that,
Suki.
yeah,
How are
Suki.
you?
Hi, Suki. Did she freeze?
Nope, I'm still here. How are
Oh,
you,
okay.
Pat?
So I'm here this week, my computer's working and everything.
Yeah. So what's going on? What's happening here?
Not much
No, everything is good.
so far.
It
It
was
was
a
a
great day
beautiful
today. The weather
day.
was good.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
beautiful. Just terrific.
So we're gonna, wait for a couple of more minutes.
Mr.
Okay.
Douglas, was the weather as beautiful in your part of Brooklyn as it is here?
Oh yes, at Borough Hall, downtown Brooklyn, and it was a perfect day. It was farmers market was out on Cadman Plaza, and walked
Oh, I
down to
love
the
those farmers markets.
walked to the promenade. It was a beautiful day.
So I'm joining today with the hope that my application to the borough president's office gets me nominated to the community board. But that's just I don't know, it's my hope. I know
And
I've
who are
offered.
you?
My
Are
name
you
is
doing
John Whipple.
politics on my meeting? Nah.
I'm just giving
Hello,
you my
John.
background.
No
Just giving
can
you my
do.
background.
I hope it gets approved.
No
Thank you.
can do. Hi, Nicola. Are you there?
Hi, sorry, I had to turn down my TV.
I understand. How you been?
Oh, good. It's just been busy like everyone else.
Feels like barely any time since we last met.
I know.
Oh, since y'all just met recently, right?
Yes, we did.
Right. Well, listen, the weather's getting better, so what do you want to do? The weather's getting like really nice now. So we're gonna wait. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Are we going to be Zoom until the end of the year, do you think?
What do you mean the end of the year?
I'll answer that. We don't know yet.
Okay.
We're waiting for the executive order to expire and then see what we're directed to do.
Okay. When does it expire?
I think it's in April something,
Oh, okay.
like mid-April. So right now we're okay, and we'll see what the future holds.
Okay.
So you say the end of the year, so we break in June and then we don't
That's what
start back
Suki
until
means.
September, right?
Yeah, I assume September will be back in-person meetings, if not sooner. So Pat, now that the weather's nice, am I going to see you in the park or what?
Yes, I'm gonna try and
Okay.
get back out there.
It is one of
It's
the
not,
highlights.
no, it's not stable yet. You know,
Okay,
it still gets a little chilly to me.
Mhm.
okay.
Hopefully by the end of like this month or so. But I ain't
Excellent.
cold, man. I don't do that.
All right.
Hi, Jay.
Hello, Suki. How are you? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention to your point, the question was, is this Zoom going to continue to the end of the year and everything like that? I heard at a borough board meeting that was on YouTube that they're looking to extend at least the remote portion, almost like indefinitely, like they're looking to continue it. So there was talk about the borough board coming up with a resolution. They're working on that. And the chair here, Fred Baptiste, I think voiced his support for the continuation of Zoom meetings remotely because there's increased usage and everything. So that's should happen as far as like the Zoom part. I don't know whether it will be a hybrid because they do a hybrid at Community Board 17th. So
Well,
just to
I
check.
can
Yeah.
just tell you that the open meetings law does not allow Zoom formats unless there is a state of emergency. And I can tell you there's already quite a number of lawsuits that are being formed against public entities because of the way in which they handle the Zoom, and it prevents residents from participating. And I can tell you that CB9 has a very bad track record that I have been documenting and following through. So
Whoa,
if
okay,
the board decides to do
no.
something like that,
Listen,
there will be a
hello, my meeting
just,
hasn't
just,
started
saying
yet.
just letting John know, okay?
Well, call John up then, because y'all, I don't want to do that one here. We got company.
Good evening, Alicia. Good evening, Esteban.
Yes, I am
Hello.
in the room. I can't be seen. I do apologize about that. My video's not working, but I am definitely here.
Okay. Okay, so one more minute, and then we can get started. Now, we do have guests. We have a guest or a guest, I don't know yet.
Just me from the Brooklyn Borough President's Office tonight. John Douglas, Director of Land Use for the Brooklyn Borough President.
So what happened to the deputy director who said that he was going to give a presentation? I mean, we don't even know who that is, but
yeah, so
what's his name?
Aaron Buchanan, the deputy director, and we didn't realize the borough board was tonight as well, so we're double booked.
Okay, I got you.
Confusion, but well, same presentation. You'll same.
Well, I know you'll do an excellent job.
Thank you.
So, Suki, you ready to start?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, so 7:07 is what I have.
7:07. Okay.
Can we have chat on, please? They had it on last night in EP committee. It was really helpful.
Excuse me, I'm trying to start a meeting. Can you put your hand down, please?
Can we have chat on, please? They had it on an EP last night.
I'm so sorry. First of all, it was an error and the chat should have not been on, and it won't be on this evening. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay, so good evening, everyone. We started the meeting at, I think Suki said 7:07. Again, the rules of order for Community Board 9 is in effect. And the only thing that I ask everybody is to please respect one another and try not to talk over each other. We do have company this evening, so we are going to use the raise hand when it comes down to questions. And again, I just want to welcome everybody. And John, so we're on first name basis now. The floor is all yours.
Okay, can someone give me permission to share my screen so I can show the presentation?
Sure thing, John. I'll get you situated right now.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Like I said, unfortunately, Aaron Buchanan was supposed to speak tonight, but we realized Borough Board's also tonight, so she's currently doing that meeting. So it's, like I said, the same information here as provided there, and we certainly want your more detailed feedback online, or feel free to email me. I'll put my email in the chat before we go, just so you have that for, just for your records in general, if you need anything related to land use and zoning and topography. Let's see. Okay, great. Can you all see that slideshow?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we're here to talk about the Brooklyn Comprehensive Plan that spearheaded by the Office of the Brooklyn Borough President with a focus on health and housing. So what is a comprehensive plan? Generally, a comprehensive plan really is just a plan that provides guidance for community stakeholders to utilize a variety of means to implement those goals. Specifically for this comprehensive plan, the borough president will likely use this as a roadmap for how he approaches land use decisions and recommendations that come through his desk, and provide accountability, predictability to the public from the borough president, so that you understand where he sits on certain issues related to, mostly around land use and zoning, and then sharing critical data with stakeholders in Brooklyn. So the existing conditions report, we briefed the borough board and had the town hall last fall, and online at the borough president's office, you can access the existing conditions report that has a significant amount of data about Brooklyn collected. And we took feedback on that information, and we'll be updating the existing conditions with that feedback. So if you did submit any comments, they were read, we will incorporate them, and we'll show you that work this summer. So what this plan is not, I just want to be super clear, is not a substitute for a citywide comprehensive plan. The borough president's just one man, one elected office. There previous legislative attempts at doing a comprehensive citywide comprehensive plan in the last council session. It didn't go, it wasn't passed, but certainly the borough president still supports a citywide effort to comprehensive plan. This is also not a substitute for ongoing local planning efforts. So if you're doing local planning efforts, first of all, I would love to hear about some of them. I'm sure we could talk about it tonight or some other time, but we want to incorporate them and not stand in the way of those projects. Those things are, on the ground, you know what your community needs best, and we want to support those efforts. This is not complete or finished, so we'll direct you to where a full list of the recommendations can be found, and they're just draft. You're the second community board we've been to, and we haven't even released them to the public yet. So certainly not finished. Just like the existing conditions, we'll take feedback from the public, and want to make sure that we have that input before we finalize anything with the borough president. And then finally, this is not a rezoning proposal, so you won't find a ULURP application that'll come at the end. There will be recommendations related to ULURP, but itself is not a zoning map amendment or a zoning text amendment that you would necessarily vote on here. So that's just some context setting. Also so you understand, I know you're community board members, so you know this stuff, but just briefly, the borough president's powers and responsibilities are that he can issue ULURP recommendations. He can sponsor and introduce legislation at city council. He has his own budget and can prioritize allocating that budget as he sees fit. Monitor and modify delivery of city services. So where there's gaps or needs additional capacity, he can help serve those constituents. And he's really a convener and strategic communicator across Brooklyn. He's the only, one of the few county elected officials that really brings the borough together and wants to think strategically about the future of Brooklyn's land use. So why focus on health and housing? Through the research, and I think some of you may have read some of the data that we collected and read the town hall last year. We saw a lot of stark disparities in health outcomes as it relates to race and income. So, lower income communities or incomes or communities of color have higher rates of chronic illnesses, have higher exposure to heat island effect, higher exposure to some air quality issues, and then and there's and I think so there was certainly health disparities that we found from the data, and they're spatial as well, and I think we showed that in our last presentation. So we think that this is also an opportunity to coalesce around a future land use plan that values improving public health outcomes. And say that because, I think previous discussions around housing and growth and development really are focused around maybe metrics that aren't really meaningful to folks. So, building a 500,000 units may not, some people be, asked like, I'm never going to get that unit. So how's that going to help me? And so hopefully if we can talk about housing and planning from those shared values around improving public health outcomes, we can find some solutions, clearly not all of them, but work together to help solve them. And like I said, there's a growing body of research that shows that a lot of the socioeconomic determinants of health are governed by the location of affordable housing, how close it is to quality transit, and accessibility of jobs and public services. So, so much of that basically will affect life expectancy and other, the concentration of chronic illnesses. So, like I said, we did. The borough president, started on this project as soon as he got to office. It was outlined in his transition report from being elected city council member to the borough president's office, and so out of that came his desire to end the campaign to do a comprehensive plan for Brooklyn. And so early in the last year, he established the advisory committee, which is made up of a group of 20 or so organizations, city agencies, academics, health professionals that have helped guide what data we're using, how we're getting the data, and how we're looking at measuring success related to those outcomes. The borough president, like I said, held the town hall last fall. There's an online portal for folks to provide additional feedback, which we did receive, presented to the borough board and borough service cabinet. And then the borough president talks about this project often when he's out in the public. So he always brings it up. And so that's what we mean by engaging with critical stakeholders. And then our newest partner on this project, we were previously working with the Regional Planning Association and New York Academy of Medicine on the existing conditions portion. This portion is really focused heavily on the community engagement because we really are, hitting the ground with recommendations, which I think is what most people care about. And so, Hester Street has been hired to help make sure that we're doing a comprehensive job doing that outreach. And they've already started by doing a few focus groups around health and housing infrastructure and environmental justice. So you'll hear more from them probably in the near future, but just to let you know that we have that new partner as well. And these are just some images from that first existing conditions planning effort. So out of that research, all that work and public feedback, we sat down and tried to figure out what's the best way to approach these issues. So we thought the best way would be show emerging goals that have come out of that research, and from those goals we'll create objectives, recommendations, and finally metrics to understand how well we're doing and how we measure success. And so that will be borough-wide, but it'll follow this order in terms of structure of the plan. And then there's another section that will really focus on the land use framework. Each framework will basically provide a spatial analysis of where some of these recommendations would be most impactful. So areas with chronic, health diseases would probably get more resources related to those issues. So just keeping those two things in mind, they'll be sort of simultaneously addressed, but we wanted to show you how we're doing that. So the next slide, these are the emerging goals that came out, and you'll think any of them will surprise you. One of the first goal is to reduce hazardous environmental conditions, including those related to climate change, increasing access to quality, affordable healthcare, increasing access to safe and healthy, affordable housing, encouraging active living to reduce chronic illnesses, and increasing support for social resiliency in neighborhoods with significant health disparities, and then clearly looking for increased access to employment opportunities and pathways to well-paying jobs. And through all that, we want to make sure that we're accounting for and creating an accessible environment. So for example, we wanted to just pick a few out of the goals and show you how the structure of the plan will look and how the data is informing that. So all the goals will be addressed in the link I'll send you. They'll have all of the goals, objectives, recommendations, and metrics related to this, but we just wanted to pick out a few because there are a lot and just try to make sure that we're clearly communicating what we're trying to achieve. So when you look at a document, you're sort of prepared for it. So first goal is reducing environmental hazards. So one example of an objective that we do have in there is to protect vulnerable populations from high heat. So, as you know, less tree cover, more concrete usually creates the heat island effect, which is, makes New York City much hotter than surrounding counties that have more tree cover. And so the map on the right, you'll see the darker the color of the community board, the higher the concentration of populations that are more susceptible and to heat stress. So those are like very young children, older adults, folks with asthma. Those are some examples of that population mix that's included in this index. And so that's where, that objective we would want to be focused on those high heat areas primarily. So some of the recommendations would be, increasing open space in those communities, increasing the number of, active open space that provides splash or cooling features, making sure schools and households have access to air conditioning and increased tree cover. And so the metric of success would be looking at that same data point from the existing conditions report, the heat vulnerability index, and making sure that hopefully over the next, let's say 10 years, that we reduce that, high heat vulnerability index for those communities and try to create some parity, some equity around that public health issue. A second example of goal, objectives, recommendation metrics is increasing access to quality, affordable healthcare. So one of the objectives is to remove barriers to healthcare. One of those recommendations would be to, in areas that have a lack of, quality, affordable healthcare options. If there is new construction, the borough president would be there. It is under his review from the office to highlight that issue, to try to find opportunities to expand the number of healthcare facilities in those communities that don't have, the quality or the quantity of needed. Creating information related to health issues in all the languages that are most spoken across Brooklyn. We have a very diverse borough, and so we want to make sure everyone can, access that information and protect themselves. And then you'll see this coming up quite a bit, and we'll focus on a little bit at the end. But the proposed IBX does provide a link between some of the safety net hospitals. Those are hospitals where a lot of Medicaid patients attend, and they're reimbursed by the state. That the Interborough Express, the proposed rail line that is currently private, it's privately owned with CSX and others, but it runs through South Brooklyn up into Queens, and provides a potential opportunity to link communities to more healthcare facilities. So basically, the metric would be increase the number of Brooklyn residents living in accessible transit distance of safety net hospitals. So that'd be a walkable distance to transit, and then being able to access the safety net hospital once you get off the train within that same walkable distance. Another goal is active living, encouraging active living to reduce chronic illnesses. The map on the right you'll see is basically all the locations where pedestrians and have been killed in our communities. And so it's a significant amount and fairly distributed. So, we want to make sure that we're addressing that issue by strengthening Brooklyn cycling and pedestrian infrastructure, making sure that we're closing the bike network so that bikers are on a protected bike path, from start to finish. And then, as the projects of ULURP come through, making sure that we have extra bike parking, making sure biking is easy to do in the city is, something that we could do by encouraging folks to bike here and provide parking. So one metrics of success would be looking at building 50 miles of protected bike lanes by 2026. That's part of the New York Streets plan that was approved in the last city council. So some of the metrics may be based on other, documents that, the borough president shares and understands and supports. And then just decreasing the number of injuries for cyclists and pedestrians. So that's the big picture on how we're structuring it. They'll have each of those goals at the beginning will have their own set of objectives, recommendations, and metrics for success. Now, the spatial element, like I said, is the 4 land use frameworks. So we broke up the borough into sort of abstract areas. 1, housing growth and parking demand management, health and wellness economy, healthy streets and environment, and a green waterfront economy. So what does that mean? For housing growth and parking demand, you'll see on the map on the right is the concentration of housing construction in the yellow bubbles, and the size of the bubble corresponds to the size of the building or the number of units. And you can see there's a significant concentration of new construction in North Brooklyn, and less so on the train lines in Southern Brooklyn. And so, we're want to make sure that everyone in Brooklyn is doing their fair share to provide housing for our communities. There's significant research showing the link between housing and improving public health outcomes. And so we want to make sure that, where transit exists, where, it's reasonable and rational to grow, that we focus growth there. And we also have the IBX line on this map that cuts through, 7, 12, 14, 17, that blue line. That's an opportunity also to make, areas where we would want to see some growth around those transit nodes. Like I said, transit-oriented development, we want to encourage housing growth within a half mile of existing or proposed mass transit. So this is a map on the right of communities that don't meet, the density requirements that the Governor Hochul proposed in her budget. And so, that's just an example of a way, I think it's 50 units per acre is the definition that they use in terms of how much density each community should have to do their fair share. And we want to make sure that that is, done responsibly, built around transit and all the necessary infrastructure. And the proposed IBX line, we think, opens up a significant portion of the borough for more housing in areas that haven't seen a lot of growth. So parking demand management, clearly we have to deal with the parking issue. It's real, it's a concern, it's a real concern. However, the city is not creating new on-street parking. And so the borough president wants to get folks to utilize mass transit rather than a personal vehicle when possible. And we want to make sure that the option to not drive is more convenient than driving. And so we want to make sure that those alternatives are easily accessible to folks. And then, like I said, making sure that we're building closer to transit so less people have to drive to get where they need to go. And some of the parking demand management strategies, I think every community is different. We just met with CB7 last night, and they had a very unique parking situation out there. I can talk about later, but so I know that everyone's different, but these are some of the general best practices around parking demand management. One is parking cash out. That's when there's commuter benefits that the federal government subsidizes, and for private parking for commuters. And one way to encourage folks to get out of cars is say you can keep that benefit in cash, but just don't use the commuter portion or use the parking. So that would just be a cash out of yet that public benefit subsidy. Wayfinding sounds sort of simple, but a lot of folks don't know where off-street parking exists and where it's able to be utilized. Some, not all property owners know that they can, lease out their parking space to the public if they so choose. So just raising awareness of off-street parking locations, how utilized is that parking garage? Where is there other off-street parking options? Park and ride is, you probably see it more in Staten Island along the SIRR or other more suburban communities, but South Brooklyn, Southern Brooklyn, it might make more sense in terms of basically creating a large parking structure near transit nodes, so those who live further away from, let's say Flatlands or Mill Basin, that they could drive, park at near the nearest subway stop, and then take the rail for the rest of their commute. So the borough president also supports residential parking permits, which has been floated by the state senate. So we would love to see that move forward and sort of help rationalize who's parking on these streets and making sure that, folks who actually live here are getting first priority for those spaces. Unbundling parking costs from rent, so making sure that folks who rent know that they don't have to pay for parking, and that there's what the difference is between the rent with parking and without, and let folks choose if they would like to add it or not. In some buildings, my last building I lived in did that for me. Shared parking is when you look at basically mixed use buildings and share the parking requirement in terms of, maybe having if there's a commercial building, you're definitely going to see parking all day, but not so many people parking at night. And so is there opportunities to utilize portions of that parking garage for residents who live in the area who are going to use that car the next morning to go to work? Things like that. And then looking at reducing parking minimums close to transit and overflow parking in terms of, big events like Barclays Stadium, making sure that they have a serious, significant planned out traffic management strategy and parking for overflow parking for those events. So there's like big picture on that, and certainly want to talk to you about that. A few more slides and I'd love to get some questions. The health and wellness economy, this is looking at disparities in life expectancy, is probably going to be the biggest guide here. On the map on the right, you can see concentration of areas also with communities that have reported very bad mental health days. And we also have the safety net hospitals here. And so we want to make sure that the #1 goal is to improve life expectancy for these communities. Plan for healthcare and education workers to grow and thrive. Over half of Brooklyn residents work in education and healthcare fields. Increasing active and open space, passive open space, like I said, related to heat island conditions, access to medical care, and encouraging wellness economy. Like I said, 50% of Brooklyn residents who work in do work in healthcare and education industries. In the map on the right, you can see the darker the purple, the higher the concentration of folks that work in those industries. And the proposed IBX line is in yellow, and so that's not existing now, but it shows that a significant number of those folks who work in healthcare and education could benefit by the expansion of IBX, and a lot of them are living pretty significant, I would say transit deserts, and so there's an opportunity there to reduce their hopefully commuter costs, and get them out of cars, and hopefully more active lifestyle, and all the goals we just outlined. Healthy streets in the environment. This is focused really on the waterfront in North Brooklyn, creating safe streets. There's significant concentration of bike accidents in North Brooklyn. It's also where there's a lot of bike infrastructure, so we have to figure that one out. But we want to make sure that where people are biking, that it's safe and clear where it's appropriate to bike, and we want to think innovatively about the public right-of-way, because North Brooklyn really doesn't have a significant amount of areas to build open space, and so looking at our public streets as an opportunity for more social gathering opportunities, and then prioritizing bus lane construction that will make a difference in people's lives. This is a map of PM 2.5 pollution. This is basically the particulate matter that can aggravate and exacerbate existing health conditions. And you also have a map of all the toxic waste sites, Superfund sites, and the BQE. As you can see, our industrial waterfront, the BQE, and those two things really define where our highest concentration of the worst air quality is. And oftentimes these are near our lower income communities of color. And the outlines of the census tract, those are areas that have been identified in the CLCPA, the State Climate Act, for disadvantaged communities. So those are the areas that we're targeting to make sure that they have that we're reducing their exposure to things that would aggravate their health. And finally, the green waterfront, this is a sort of abstract plan for a green waterfront economy that is really a focus on moving freight by barge and by rail rather than truck. And so that one is a huge benefit of IBX that's already existing freight line. There's an opportunity to connect that with the 65th Street Rail Yard, which is on the Brooklyn waterfront, with the Cross Harbor Tunnel. So we can get more cargo off of the BQE, off of our local streets, and onto rail to move through the rest of the city. We're also talking about bringing the wind energy economy, the full supply chain to Brooklyn's industrial waterfront. You can see in purple are the significant maritime industrial areas. Those areas, we want to see the offshore wind energy really thrive and the whole supply chain come here. New York State really does have a competitive advantage related to wind energy. That's what our state folks are telling us, and that the offshore wind leasing has been going on. Some of you might have seen that, but because we have such a shallow shelf in the ocean out of Long Island, there's a lot of space to build wind turbines that can actually be posted into the ground, and that is unusual for folks. And so the other option is a floating wind turbine, which apparently costs a lot more and is more maintenance. So we have that competitive advantage, and we want to make, and it's also an industry that really lends itself to freight movement by rail and barge, because, well, they have to barge it out to the Long Island waterways. We have a significant maritime waterfront active industrial area, and then we can combine move the freight by rail from other parts of the country is the goal. And on top of that, we have a once generation opportunity to protect New York Harbor from future storm surge and climate change and sea level rise. And so Army Corps has done their HATS project. They may have come and spoken to you, and maybe not, because you guys are maybe a little bit more less susceptible to storm surge, but they have been meeting with community members. They're proposing significant gates at like sea gates at Coney Island Creek, Gowanus, Newtown Creek. And so, we really have to think critically about, if you're building a floodgate on the Gowanus Canal, that's a Superfund site. So what's going to come first, Superfund or the gate? And can they be combined? And how can we combine them? Newtown Creek, I think there's an elevation issue related to the Queen side. So there's a whole bunch of coordination that's going to have to happen. And so we want to make sure that, the borough president's there to help coordinate some of those issues, take a lead on those issues. And then there's been a lot of complaints about this proposal. It's related to, they're using a lot of gray, hard infrastructure, seawalls, not necessarily utilizing natural features that could help with some of that storm surge attenuation. So WEDGE is a Waterfront Alliance guide of how to utilize sort of more natural features, less concrete flood walls that block views and create a less than desirable open space. How can we make it more natural and more inviting for folks to actually get to the waterfront? And so finally, I'm almost done. IBX, we really do think achieves a lot of goals. Reducing obesity. There's been studies that show that vehicles miles traveled is linked to the more miles you travel by car, the higher the rate of obesity in that community. And so on the map on the right, you'll see the darker the color in red, the higher the concentration of folks that are obese in that community. And the proposed IBX really does cut right through the middle of that. And as you can see here on the right, on the map here, that everything below the proposed or south of the proposed IBX line are the communities that are really more heavily reliant on driving. And so the dotted lines around the IBX are that area that, we think are walkable. And so to transit. And so we hope we can reduce the amount of vehicle miles traveled for those communities and provide other options for them to get where they need to go. So reducing commuter times, reducing that car traffic, improving our air quality, and providing more access to jobs. And like I said at the top, encouraging residential growth along IBX is a sort of an elegant solution, or hopefully for growth, and creating some mass transit redundancy. If a line breaks down, or there's a car that's breaking down on the subway, that you can utilize some other transit to get where you need to go, and not just relying on one train line. And IBX really does has the potential to connect a bunch of the subway lines that run through Brooklyn. And then, like I said, the connection between waterborne and rail freight movements, the IBX is really critical for that. It's already a critical rail freight structure, but looking at opportunities to expand it, make it more utilized for freight movement. So where are we now in the plan? So like I said, we did the community engagement related to existing conditions last year. We're working with Hester Street now on the train the trainer model. So they'll be working with our advisory committee to basically help folks understand what this project's all about. The advisory committee go out to their communities and constituents, basically do this kind of interaction with those folks, understand how the data really reflects their communities, and how these recommendations can help their communities, and how we can update our recommendations to respond more holistically to each community's concerns. So after that, we'll take all that feedback, provide all the refined feedback for the advisory committee before we do I would say, final release party at a town hall sometime this summer. So we hope to all see you all there. And we'll have a digital survey, so you can, if you don't want to come to a hearing, you can also just provide your comments online. Like I said, it was really great last time. We got a lot of great comments, and we'll have a final report coming out this summer. The next steps after probably this summer will be more of the implementation phase. We're really trying to find an academic research partner to help make sure that we're measuring success and measuring health outcomes in a responsible, reasonable way, that we can actually be accountable to some of these goals and objectives. And so I said, yeah, we're looking at town hall week of the 15th. We'll open digital tool through this next couple of months, and we look forward to hearing from you. And that's all for me. Happy to take any questions or just discuss whatever you guys want to.
Okay. All right. Okay. Mia. Okay. For all those that want to ask a question, you need to just raise your hand. And Mia, can you take the person who's first, second, third, fourth, whatever?
Sure thing. So far, there's only Miss Boyd. Anyone else with any questions? Okay, so I have Miss Boyd, Suki, and then Mr. Hollingsworth.
Okay, anyone else? Okay.
Miss Boyd, go ahead.
I see that when I was looking at that map, one of the maps, I can't remember which one it was, there was a clear distinction about the heat sensory map, where you show that on our side of the park, there's a high concentration of heat, whereas on the other side of the park, we call it the white side of the park, Park Slopes and Windsor Terrace, there was a low. However, there is a complete absence of understanding why the heat actually exists. And one is because of the density levels. Over on Park Slopes and Windsor Terrace, they have very small homes. They have, 1 to 2 story homes. Most of them are 1-family homes. And so they have they don't have the density that we have. Whereas on our side of the park, we have an extreme amount of density. We have 6-story, on each corner, we have these large apartment houses. And so one would not say it's just because of the fact that we don't have trees on our blocks. One would actually say that the heat is because we have people and apartments. And yet I'm seeing that you are proposing to sit there and do development, because this seems to be a plan to do development as a way of supposed to be helping us with our health. I'm not sure how building more in our community, I'm not talking about anybody else's community. I don't know how building more, higher buildings, more density, more increase in population is supposed to help with our heat density, when actually it would actually increase. Because if you now have an apartment, for example, that has 3-4 stories, and you have, and then you destroy it and you build a 20-story building, you're going to emanate more heat, just because you're going to have more people and you're going to have and actually, there's been a lot of research that says that the destruction of existing properties in response to then creating more, a higher density, actually is a negative. 50% of our carbon footprint is as a result of development. So you're coming to the densest populated area in the borough, right? You're proposing development in that very dense community as a way to offset our health, when in actuality, based upon the data and the information that I have, it actually increase. And we're not even talking about the displacement issue, because
Alicia, what's your question though? We're taking questions. What's your question?
Well, first I got to give out the information.
Yeah, but
So the question, Chair is always trying to keep me focused. The question is that how are you proposing increase in density? How are you proposing increase in development in our community, knowing that it would actually exacerbate our health conditions? It would actually cause us to have a denser populated area. And then don't forget, the MTA is cutting back on services. Are we not paying attention to that? They're removing bus lines. How are you coordinating all that and then coming to us and saying, oh yeah, I think we need to build in your neighborhood because it's actually going to be healthier for you?
I appreciate that question, and it's a reasonable one. And I think happy to talk through the data that you have and we have and offline. But I think just how we looked at where growth and housing, the future, I guess, growth scenario, we account for how much housing has been built in North Brooklyn, including CB9. And when you look at the density, let's say from Governor Hochul's proposal around 50 acres per unit, none of CB9 is less than 58 units per acre. So I won't say that no housing is, would be, that the borough president would support that, but certainly feels like, they've done a significant portion of their fair share. And that, like I said, looking at growth around, really south of the park is, I'd say, the primary area where we're looking for residential growth. I think really in 9 and other communities a little bit further East New York, Brownsville, really looking at opportunities for improving health disparities. So increasing open space, making sure you have access to healthcare facilities that are quality education or healthcare facilities, making sure you have enough schools, making sure that folks can get to work, have more access to transit, protected bike lanes, things like that. I wouldn't say that there would be, so that's what I say about the growth scenario there. And I also think I think there's also, I think you're right in terms of heat island effect, in my opinion, that having just huge apartment buildings with blank roofs increases the heat that is concentrated in those communities. And so, there's several ways we want to, support getting, more green roofs, solar roofs, blue roofs and, white roofs to, reflect back the sunlight. So there's some tried and true issues around or strategies around reducing heat that do have to do with large building footprints and less area for trees. And so I think we're on the same page, I think, on some of those issues.
Okay, thank you. Who's next, Mia?
Suki is next.
Hey, so thank you for the presentation. I just had a couple things I wanted to bring up along the, the lines of with the focus on health. So first of all, the thing that my neighbors have been on to me about for the past few weeks, the proliferation of smoke shops. That can't be good for health. People are not happy. I don't know what the regulations are from the health department about smoke shops. I heard that CB14 was talking about zoning to limit smoke shops. I don't know, what your thoughts are on that. If, maybe it should be put into certain use groups or something like that, or if there might be an opportunity to do special districts, like, to encourage healthy uses, exercise, fresh food businesses related to that sort of thing, and limit smoke shops, alcohol, whatever. So that's one thought. Another thought, there's obviously lots of reasons why people drive, but in terms of limiting the reasons why they might need to drive, I know, for example, that I drive to Home Depot and Lowe's over in Gowanus. I drive to Trader Joe's in downtown Brooklyn or on Court Street. But if we had one in our community, I wouldn't drive. It's not fun, and we actually do have these big underutilized commercial spaces. We don't have a lot of commercial zoning, but we have some of those big spaces. And so we'd like to think about bringing more of some of that type of retail. Just some random stuff. I know historically, there's quite a lot of apartment buildings that had play roofs. I guess it was like a big thing in the 19-teens or 1920s or something. It was like a marketing thing that we have a play roof. And I heard there was one building on Parkside, which is actually just outside of our district, that still has playground equipment that used to be on their roof. So that might be that there's one building across the street from me that has playground equipment in the backyard, which is unused.
What's the question?
So just like to think about opportunities to maybe, I don't know, give people grants or something to do that. Also, my neighbors have complained that the playground on Winthrop Street got full, which has a splash park, got full during the pandemic. So opportunities to expand playgrounds would be good. That's all I have for now.
That's great. And I think that certainly have heard smoke shops come up before. So certainly we'll relay that concern again to the borough president. Looking at, filling vacant commercial space, I'm happy to sit with you all and try to strategize about some of those things, like you're saying, destination retail that you really have to go out district for. So I get it. And play roofs sound really exciting. I'd love to see some of those. And Winthrop Park is full, splash parks. So noted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Who's next? Let me just ask everyone, can you, I don't have a problem with you expressing what you're feeling or whatever, but I want to get everybody in. So can we, say a little small statement and then get to the question, if you would, please.
Thank you. Mr. Hollingsworth?
Thank you, Ms. Hilton. Thank you, Mr. Douglas, for the presentation. I just have one question. How do we find out, how do we get a list of every group and every individual that was part of this this group that put together this plan? You mentioned that it was a group that came together earlier, but you didn't give us names. So how do we get a full list of everyone who played a role in this?
Yeah, I can drop it in the chat right now.
We don't have chat.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we don't have chat, but if you can send the link to the
Yeah,
meeting.
we're not allowed to have chat.
I'm so sorry, Ms.
Teresa,
Westerveld and Ms. Boyd, please.
Welcome to CB9.
Ms.
Okay.
Boyd, thank you for your commentary, but sorry, Mr. Douglas, you can please just send that information to BKO9-1, and
Will do.
I'll send it to all interested parties. Thank you.
And we'll have to foil for it.
Excuse me, going forward, I mean, I understand that we might have personal business, but can we keep it professional right now? And let's deal right here with the issue. And then once our company leaves, we can talk. Who's next?
John, I saw your hand up. Are you still interested in speaking? Okay, got it. Andrew?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Wonderful. Okay, these actual questions. Number one, are you planning to share this presentation with the Transportation Committee and CB9 later at some point?
We absolutely can. And if you'd like us to speak there, we're happy to do it, or we can just say a slideshow.
Okay, either would be great. I think because a lot of this is about the curb to streetscape, they'd be very interested to hear it. My second question is also about sharing. Would you be, the maps in the presentation were very, very nice, and we did some deep diving. Would you be able to share, or is there a publicly available website where we can look at some of the raw data, especially about density, dwelling units per acre, et cetera? I don't know. I tried to look at Zola, Acris, and Pluto to find out the density of some of the R5 and lower zoned areas of our neighborhood, and I was not getting the 50 units per acre. And especially because the Hochul plan hasn't actually outlined what is an exemption, like a public cemetery versus a private church, like what counts in terms of residential density makeup. If there's a web portal, I don't know, is there, or can you share the raw data? That'd be very helpful.
So all the data from the plan is from NYC Open Data. So we're happy to get talk through like how we did some of this work, and happy to share that with you all offline if you'd like. But it's all from NYC Open Data, and we cite it all. And but certainly would, we finally have ArcGIS, so I'm excited to say we can do some of this analysis now. So
wonderful. And my third question is the plans for the IBX and waterfront are nice. They don't necessarily impact our district necessarily. I'm curious if the borough president has taken any posture to kind of synergize a lot of what the different proposals are. For example, like one of the things that we've been talking about is parking availability, but then also talking about heat island effect. Like having more parking lots makes the ground surface hotter. And if on one hand, the city is going to propose like blast or city VS that enables seeker exemptions for parking lots like at random. And on the other hand, you have infrastructure bills that try to push people into public transit, which I think is a good thing. Like those are like fundamentally at odds with each other. At the same time, in our district, like we've seen a pretty delayed response whenever there's like sewerage mains or backups or something that would require the street to be kind of, ripped out. I mean, like in Chicago, there's like a urban green water thing where whenever there's a water main or sewer break, or they're installing a new cable or something, they'll do an ad hoc kind of analysis to see if like, hey, does this need to get repainted for a bike lane or a busway, or can we put more street trees here? Like, I would really like to see this kind of interdisciplinary thing, because every time we get an agency in here, they point the finger to somebody else. And the office is supposed to be interagency.
Andrew, what's your question?
Is there a plan to synergize agencies? Because for president's supposed to be interagency.
That's right. And I appreciate the question. And I think it's a challenge that we're gonna have to, meld some of these issues. There are gonna be drivers in New York, and we're gonna have to plan for them. We just want to make it accessible to not have to use a car. So I think we're gonna try to hold those two truths in our hands as we plan. And just I think you're right in terms of, no specific plan around economy in 9, but I think you're right that we can look at some street repairs, coordinating agency repairs, and the borough service cabinet meeting is where all the city agencies report to the borough president about ongoing projects in the district. And so happy to think through, and Carol Ann she's director of community boards, she's doing an amazing job of managing that cabinet meeting. But that's a venue that we think is the best way to try to elevate those issues. So if you have a list of streets that, have daily flooding, or if, come up with sewer issue, happy to hear about it and elevate it to the BP for those meetings.
Thank you. We have two more people and then we're going to end.
Yeah, we have Esteban first and then we have Nicola.
Okay, and then we're going to end on Nicola.
Hi, how you doing? Esteban. I have a couple questions primarily in relation to how this data was or how it aligns or not aligns with the governor's housing compact and how much of it was based on. I noticed that you did the transit-oriented development, but there are several other components of that because I've been in Albany several times in the past 2 weeks. All of this is being negotiated right now, and I'm wondering how the differences lie, and also like what, for example, if it's the section on transit-oriented development that doesn't pass, and we go to the other pieces of it, just kind of how you're interacting with that and how this interacts with that would be great to know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in general, I think, like I said, the borough president supports everyone doing their fair share about bringing housing online. And so we saw a significant amount of housing that was produced in North Brooklyn, less so in South Brooklyn. So we did use from our analysis, we did 50 units per acre, excluding some open space and some industrial portions. And that really still was concentrated, I'd say, in everywhere south of the park. So, I think we're planning with that framework in mind. We realize it's, in this delayed budget, so who knows what will come out of it. But I think the borough president is interested in the concept, and that, it's a way that we can think about where we want to target growth for the next 10 years. And so I think we see that significantly around, CB's, 11, 10, 15, 14, a little 18. So yeah, we tried to align in terms of just analysis where those communities that wouldn't necessarily meet that growth, and try to find density or opportunities for growth around existing subway in those areas. So I think that's really what we're thinking around Hochul's plan. Interested to see how it all turns out. I hope it holds the suburbs accountable, but time will tell on that one. But Westchester does have a great accessory dwelling unit ordinance, so I have to give them that. So check that out if you haven't already.
Do you think, just a follow up, do you think that, or did you do any analysis on the communities in Brooklyn that may have already in recent years matched up to like the 3% target that Hochul puts in there? And is that something that you're looking at in terms of where you're gonna be seeking opportunities? Because the way that the compact is written right now, everyone starts basically
right
at the same point, and we know that that's not the way that life works. And some communities are already dense enough to cover that target. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think totally agree. The borough president, his favorite map is showing where new construction has happened, because it's so much concentrated in North Brooklyn and CB9 and other areas. You see significant growth, and then barely any in like I said, south of the park. So I think in terms of 3%, I think we should have been discussing and that the same concern you have, which is that it doesn't account for sort of a backward look. And I think we should consider at least the last 10 years where housing has been developed, and plan for the next 10 years of where we think it should go. So I think in general, share the same sort of common goals around, let's make sure everyone's doing their fair share, and that we account for folks communities that have already taken density. So I think in general, I think we're on the same page there.
Thank you. Who's next?
I think it's me.
Oh,
yes.
Hi, John. Thanks for the presentation. I am glad to see that we are being recognized for the contributions we have already made to the residential units. We have done our fair share. The challenge that I have, and I've heard from neighbors, is the fact that given the fact that we have a lot of development that has occurred, development that's already being planned and underway in our community, we've historically been an affordable community, and the affordability is quickly escaping us. What are we doing to protect the affordable units that still exist, have existed? How do we make that happen? We have rent stabilized units that are under pressure. What plans as the borough president, or will that be part of this plan? Because that's our major concern right now.
Absolutely, and we've heard it every community that we talk to that, and frankly, my community, I live in Bed-Stuy, it's just very expensive and it's getting more expensive. So, I think we all understand that reality. So there's going to be a huge portion of this that we want to focus on housing affordability preservation. So, there are some Michelamas that may be leaving their what do you call it? The lifetime of their restrictive declaration around affordability. And so making sure HPD is aware of that pipeline and that they can move them into like Article 11 or some other housing affordability tax incentive. We certainly want to work with HPD's Office of Neighborhood Services, I think is what they do. They've really been taking a comprehensive look at each community and focusing on preservation programs that they have. So if I guess the borough president clearly wants to support communities and buildings that have affordable housing already, we can't get that housing back. I think we were losing affordable housing, not necessarily gaining it due to gut renovations and other issues. So we want to make sure that folks are being protected. And so I think there's potential to talk about certificate of no harassment. Other issues that have sort of come up, legal right to counsel certainly coming up, making sure that people have free access to lawyers when either their landlord is trying to kick them out or if they just need representation in court to stay in their homes. But yeah, I mean, clearly it's a top in front of mind. We have a bunch of folks from HPD that work here now, so we're working with them hand in glove. So if you have buildings or co-ops or anything like that where you feel could use some additional support, please let us know, and we'll elevate to the BP as soon as possible.
Thank you. That's it. Well, I did see Jay hand has been up for a minute. Okay, so we're going to close on Jay.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Mr. Douglas, if you could do me a favor, I know since there's not a chat, if you could put your business card in front of the web screen. I know we have company, so I'm going to be very polite, but I'll tell you, thank you. A little bit back, a little bit back, a little bit forward, a little bit forward, a little bit forward. And if you could tilt a little bit closer, a little bit forward, closer, perfect. Thank you. Great. Thank you very much. We'll try to work with that. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm not going to say anything negative, but I'll just tell you one thing, Mr. Douglas, in terms of Community Board 9.
I don't know what that means.
It's universal help message. Anyhow, let me just piggyback on what Nicola said. Specifically, the 43rd Assembly District has the third highest concentration of rent stabilized units in the city of New York. So there was a statement before about a 10-year look back period. Even if there was some construction, if it was more than 10 years ago, still there may be where we have more than our fair share of density. So I think the 10-year look back may not be the best. The second thing is that if there can be a analysis of on the transit zone of a half mile, is that referring to trains or is that referring to access to a bus? Because in my opinion, the whole strategy where we talk about people over parking spots, building more, having more bikes and everything, I think that's my personal opinion is that is going to does that discriminate against low income families who need cars, who may not be relying upon the subway. A lot of people use cars in the rent stabilized buildings. And does it also discriminate against senior citizens? So I look at, and also because what happens is if you're a family in, let's say, Manhattan and Tribeca, if there's a lack of parking on the street, there's parking facilities that you could pay $400 or $500. there's a parking facility in around the neighborhood. You don't have that in East Flatbush. That's a problem. Where are they going to park? You're going to move out, displacement. The second issue, in addition to that, is higher income people with more disposable income. If they're a family, they'll use an Uber. That might not happen in certain low income neighborhoods where they don't have the parking. And the third thing is with all these, viruses and everything like that, senior citizens are going to have to be on buses, packed within each other. And there's a question of whether or not a half mile is maybe a little bit too much to walk, maybe more of a quarter mile. So I question whether some of the policies, there's a lot of talk about, helping, Black and brown communities and everything like that. But a lot of these, getting rid of the parking spots, in my opinion, you're gonna displace families, and you're actually going to be hurting low income people. And it'll be just benefiting mostly, a bunch of the hipsters. Sorry.
No, I hear you. I appreciate the feedback. And as it relates to transit zones, I think in general, we think that at the bottom line, at least all the parts of the borough that are near subway should be included. So there's some low hanging fruit there that I think, that won't expand necessarily that much, but maybe more sort of rationalizes that transit zone network. That's established in the zoning resolution, so it would be either a text amendment or a map amendment, I'm not sure, but something that would have to go through city council to change those regulations. I do think they include the bus network as consideration, but like I said, I think in terms of expansion, there are some pretty low hanging fruit on where transit zones do not exist now, where there is existing subway service. So that's a big picture on that. And then as parking, yes, I hear you. Removing on-street parking makes it difficult to park. I used to live in Park Slope, and I would drive around 3 hours and still not find parking. And so I had to drive down to Gowanus and park, by that Whole Foods. And so, and walk up. So I know there's very limited, especially on-street parking. We don't want to necessarily say, developers shouldn't build parking. It's just that we don't want to require an unnecessary amount. So if those developers say, okay, we know that, 20% of our, residents will likely need a car and our car space, they should be able to build that. I think what we're saying is don't make them build 50% if they're only using 20%. And so, kind of letting them lead on that first. And then, like I said, the borough president has been positive on the residential parking permits, which I think really, really could help a lot with making sure that we have on-street parking for New York residents. And then, like I said, around wayfinding, I really do think just making sure folks know where off-street parking exists today, that folks can use their parking spaces as something that they can, rent out to people in the public if they want. Just really sort of exploring all the options of existing off-street parking, and making sure that on-street parking is reserved for folks that, live and work in this community.
Okay, want to thank you for coming, but you know what? I have one question. I can get
Sure.
it now. I need you to explain when you said residential parking permits. How are you going to do that? I mean, I don't understand, and I've heard it more than once.
Sure. Yeah.
Please tell me how that's going to work and be enforced.
Yep. So, I think DC has a version of this. Others do, where basically, you prove your residency. You pay, I think, it's either a yearly fee or a monthly fee. I think they propose something like 30 a month or something like that, where that's the state Senate proposal, which would have to be approved, with the governor and the assembly and the budget. But basically you would, register your car, and then you'd be able to park on street where, it says residential parking permits only. And so, folks that are driving from Jersey or from, Long Island who just want to park in your community and then take the train to work, they're not necessarily going to have access to that on-street parking the same way. So it'd be prioritizing this on-street parking for folks who actually live and work in that community.
Thank you. Now, I don't understand that, because in our community, we have buildings that are now 18 stories high, and and they're building. So how do you do a residential parking when you got all these high buildings? I mean, there's no way that I don't see it. That's all. I don't
No,
see it.
I'm happy to like sit with you all again on that issue and, you know, kind of come back with some more details on that. But certainly want to, you know, because we know that there's so much limited on-street parking, we want to make sure folks who pay taxes, live in this community, are going to get that priority. So that's the goal, and I think it will require some state actions. So, you know, it may not, but, you know, the state Senate is proposing it right now. And so we'll keep our eye on that. And as details unfold, I can also reach out to you when I get more details from their the existing proposal that they're trying to work on.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas, and we appreciate it. And
thank you so much.
Let me ask you a question. Can someone from the community be on your advisory board that you speak about? And if so, I would like to know how, you know, community, let's just say someone that's in our community, how can they get on the advisory board?
Yeah, so I think the advisory board, we feel, is more like trying to make sure we're reaching a wide swath of folks by organizations. So if there's an organization that you feel in the area that really speaks, you know, we're happy to talk about it. I think it's really first and foremost kind of a truth, or sort of like a what do you call it? Making sure that that our recommendations and data collection are sort of make sense, are, you know, not rational, but, you know, reasonable proposals that are achievable, and ways that these organizations can actually help the borough president achieve those outcomes. So it's more, I'd say, like institutional groups that are part of that committee. And so as it relates to like community groups, you know, one, we're at the community board, we want to talk to folks at that level. And then we also want to, if there's other venues where you'd like us to speak, we're also open to doing that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, have a great night, everyone.
Okay, you too, take care.
Yeah, thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you. Okay. So we have a few more minutes. We're going to run it right quick. Suki, can you do a roll call?
Yes. Pat Moses.
Here.
Warren Burke. Warren, you're here, Warren.
I am here. Thank you.
Okay. Suki Cheong here. John Craver.
I am here.
Nicola Cox.
Here.
Esteban Haron.
Here.
Okay, we've got a full house.
Was this somebody's absent, right?
Oh, Tom Thomas is
Yes.
absent.
Don't forget Tom Thomas now. He's part of us.
Very important guy.
Okay.
Very important.
Thank you. So we're not going to spend, we don't have much time, but we're going to, if anyone has anything to say from the committee first. And listen, I'm going to ask that we're not going to be all night. So if you just have something quick to say, fine. And I'll just say whatever it is, we'll try to answer your question, but let's be respectful in this meeting. That's all I got to add.
Hello.
So we're going to take committee members. You have anything that you'd like to bring, and any information that you want to say to us? Okay.
Esteban?
Nobody.
Esteban, you have your hand up, right?
Yeah.
Well, you must have a visible hand because I don't see it.
Yes, I have a hand up.
Go ahead.
No, I just want to update folks on what's going on in Albany with the negotiations around the budget. There is a move towards including the housing compact, which we've talked about here, in the budget. The governor's standing pretty strongly by it. Our own state senator, Zellner Myrie, has come out in favor of it. This thing is pretty extensive, and and deserves a look if you're interested in what it could do, because it will fundamentally change everything that we've talked about here, and everything that we're doing will fundamentally change as a result of that. So if you have thoughts on that, opinions on that, I would absolutely make those known to Senator Myrie's office as this is going through negotiations. And yeah, it's for some reason the governor,
change how for the better?
no, well, I mean, depends on how you look at it, really. If you're a developer, yeah, for the better, for sure. Less regulations is always a good thing, right? If you are in the community, this will severely scale back the amount of say that you have, and our say is limited, right? Like we have, we're already advisory. This basically takes out, makes a lot of things as of right that wouldn't have been otherwise. And like I was saying before to the borough president's representative, will demand an increase of 3% of density across the board for every community board in New York City. And if you don't hit those targets, then you have a range of options that include legalizing accessory dwelling units, removing the FAR cap on density, a couple of things that aren't terrible. And if you don't do those, then you get a builder's remedy, which means you get, for the next 3 years afterwards, you get no say in what developers are going to do, and that goes to a separate board that will most likely approve those things. So it's not great. We're not thrilled with the way that is written, and it's like the negotiations have gotten crazy. So I really encourage you to reach out to the senator and let him know that that you've been doing this locally, that you work on this stuff, and that and just let him know how you feel about it. So that's that.
And where is the report? Where can I find the document?
Nicola, you didn't raise no hands here, but you can go ahead.
So that's a clarifying question.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Just where's the report? How can we find the report?
The document somewhere. Mia, can I send that to you and have it sent out?
Yeah, send it on over. I'll shoot it out to the committee now.
Thank you.
And could I get a copy of that as well, Mia, without having to do a FOIL?
You sure can. Ms.
Yeah,
Boyd.
me as well, please. Teresa
You too,
Westerdahl,
Ms.
please.
Westerdahl, you sure can.
So why don't we just send it out to people that?
Lisa,
Yeah,
I'll CC
I got
you.
it.
I don't have Teresa's email, but if you could get that, that'd be great.
Mia has it.
Yeah, I have it. So you
Yeah.
can just shoot it to me. I'll forward it over.
Hey, Suki. I'm sorry, Suki.
I just wanted to very quickly say that I sent out a long kind of spreadsheet document to all of the ULURP committee members on the City of Yes zoning for zero carbon issues. Most of it is a summary of what we discussed, but there's also still some open questions that we didn't get to because there's so much stuff. So if you could all please take a look at that, and if we can try to have that discussion before the general board meeting, because the ULURP clock is going to start by then. And just with regard to what Esteban was, the housing compact, I actually had this conversation with Andrew, but I really don't understand why they're only looking at dwelling units around the train station rather than population density. I mean, I understand we want to encourage new construction, but a house that can, maybe 4, 6, even 8 people can live in why is that not as valid as 8 studios, right? So there's just going to be different housing types. Why are we only looking at dwelling units? And then the second thing is nobody's talking about the overall number. Where does this 800,000 number come from? We just had census numbers come in that says that New York state, as well as the city, is continuing to lose population. Maybe that 800,000 number is a target, and people should be negotiating around that. Can
I respond real quick to that?
Yeah.
Pat, do you mind? Just so that you understand sort of the context.
Yeah.
The housing compact was written by Open New York, specifically given to the governor, and essentially as a set of policy preferences, and sort of just copy and pasted into the form that it has now. So this is coming from people that are mostly interested in the the building of housing that's going to affect a much younger, much wider group of people that are, that are mostly transplants that are trying to move to New York that can afford $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 apartments. So that's the perspective. So it's not being, it's not coming from somebody that's in the community and trying to, think about how we can grow while maintaining the current people in their place, if that makes sense. So it's important to know that, because it's not targeted toward, like, there's no affordability requirements hardly at all in this state. It's not an affordable housing program. It is a density program specifically. So just so that you know the context a little bit better. Oh, and we know that because they forgot to take their logo off of some of the pages of the compact. And so if you go on the governor's website, which I'm gonna, yeah, they left their logo on some of the pages accidentally, and they also use the same type and font and the same way.
Send it to us, Esteban. It'll be worth
I
a
will.
lot.
Okay, thank you.
Page 36, by the way, page 36 of the compact. That's how you know.
We'll just have a lot of homework to read. Alicia?
Well, thank you so much, Esteban, for that. And I definitely hope that people will reach out to the senator, because I'm shocked that he would be supporting that. Not that shocked, but kind of shocked. I'm just concerned. I heard a notice that it was coming through from the city council person and Hudson, where she's proposing a district-wide rezoning proposal. I had met with her previously, and she had said about 3 weeks before she made the announcement that she was not considering a district-wide rezoning. And now all of a sudden she puts in that Hester, why Hester again? Hester nonprofit will be again conducting, community outreach to engage in rezoning. I think again, it's just a little appalling that our elected officials continue to push for development that has caused so much displacement. We've had over 20,000 people displaced in CB8 as a result of their rezoning. And so I just wanted to find out if this committee is going to be addressing Hudson's proposal, because clearly if she talks about a district-wide rezoning in her district, that will be a portion of CB9. So not really sure if that's on your radar and if and when you guys are going to be addressing it.
Thank you. I guess we need the information. Maybe you can send it into the district office.
The only thing I can send you is a notice. I mean, she just sent out an email notice that, that she plans on doing this. I could definitely forward.
Oh, I didn't. Well, I don't. Well, I don't know if we got the notice or not. I'm not.
Okay.
We had folks at that meeting on Saturday, district-wide, and that I actually told the committee a year ago that she was hiring Hester Street to do this, but I wasn't sure that it was happening. So yeah, it is a district-wide. This is kind of off the heels of the Atlantic Avenue rezoning that's happening at the north part of the So I'm really surprised that there hasn't been more outreach to even like the land use committee, because this is absolutely going to involve our, it's going to involve us. It's going to involve the entire district.
Is it in Community Board 9?
It's the entire 35th district. So yeah.
But that's not all in Community Board.
It's Community Board 9 all the way down to Empire Boulevard.
Yeah, it would be in our district, it would be from Eastern Parkway down to Empire Boulevard. And that
there is already a survey that Hester Street is doing that you can fill out and send in, but it's not super specific or doesn't really give much parameters for what it is exactly that the rezoning is trying to do. So I think it would be good to request that they send somebody or send Crystal to speak with us about what this is even about, and include us in the process, because like that seems like a lot. Like a district-wide rezoning would most obviously include or involve the land use committee. So maybe
right. And how did she not inform Community Board 9 that this is really happening?
I don't know, but I found out about it. I found out about it in March of last year. That's how early, and I sent out, and I said so in this, in one of our meetings. I don't know if it's in the notes, but But I was kind of shocked about it, that we hadn't heard anything about it, and it's kind of just been sort of not moving forward until just now. So
Thank
Well,
you.
she had claimed in a meeting with her, she claimed that she was not including CB9 in the discussion because that's what I was specifically talking about. However, I didn't see anything written in stone. And so I didn't see her saying that that was not going to include CB9. So I think we should, well, you guys should ask her to at least come, or a representative to come to the ULURP committee to talk to us about this proposal. Because it is a rezoning proposal.
Okay. Like I said, I'm really not quite sure. So maybe we could, is there any way we could follow up and see what, because I don't really have any information on it.
Sure thing. I'll follow up.
Right, because I don't even know if it just came through our office or anything. But anyway, thank you, Alicia. Jay?
I'm sorry, Esteban, did you send that email?
Oh.
No, I'm doing it right now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Jay?
Sure. So April 12th, this April 12th, there's going to be a hearing, a Zoom meeting for one of the big Vital Brooklyn projects. This is the Utica Crescent. It's where Kingsbrook Jewish is. It's the they're modifying the plan, and because of that, they need to do another hearing because it hasn't been passed. So if people have objections or anything on that, they can go to this Zoom meeting. It's only by Zoom. That's the good news. The bad news is that they're holding this meeting during spring recess when the New York City Public Schools goes off on vacation. So to pick it within those 4 days is ridiculous. And it's significant because there's going to be 89 units that they call senior housing. But when you look at the details, it's basically the requirements is that it's homeless housing from the homeless shelters, the jails, the psych wards, and also possibly from some of the nursing homes where the people were previously homeless. So there's going to be some senior citizens that are not going to realize they're going into a place that the target population is all homeless. And there's also parking issues there, and there's only like 35 spots for like a 20,000 foot supermarket, etc. So the problem is that the community really hasn't been notified on this. Yes, the community board put it in an email blast, but the problem is, number one, it's not on the website. Number two, you need to link it. And number three is the way that I got the registration is I took my phone, because you can't click when the email comes to you in the blast, you can't click on the link. So for the first time ever, I used my phone, I clicked on it, and I realized, oh, there's some sort of QRC thing. You get the QRC thing, and then you send it by a message by email to your email, and then you figure out, okay, here's a registration link. It's not the easiest way of doing it, but I would ask for some support, either from maybe Ms. Moses, where there could be a letter or something where the community board says, hey, listen, you haven't told people about this hearing. It's a general project plan. And it's during the recess, the spring recess of the schools. Not to mention, it's also during Passover. So a lot of the Orthodox Jews who are in that neighborhood can't take part in it. Why they picked those 4 days is ridiculous. And I'll also add that the organization, 2.5 years, never came to Community District 9. It never came to CB9. They came to CB 17 last week, like 2 weeks ago. They never came to CB9. It's in CB9, and there's something called like community engagement. So when you get this Vital Brooklyn project, you're supposed to tell the people and speak to them. So I would ask for some sort of assistance. Number one, you got to put the link on the community board's website. You got to put it in either like some section on the notes or the news or something. But not everybody's going to know that there's a QRC thing and to transfer by message. And the fact that it's only by like a Zoom is a little bit discriminatory, because a lot of people in the neighborhood there, the senior citizens, may not use Zoom, and they would want an in-person option to come out to the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
April 12th.
It is on blast, and I'm not sure if when you click into it, what happens.
It doesn't work.
But if it's Zoom, you could put the number in and you'll still be able to participate.
Right. A lot of the seniors don't use Zoom.
Well, and I hear you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just saying what we have on hand.
Okay,
You know, I don't control what happens there, but I would suggest that everybody try, if they can, to if you can go into the public hearing on that date. It's from 6 to 8 p.m. and it's on April 12th. And It is on the communities. I think it's on eBlast. And if you have any problems getting in, just contact the community board office. We gotta close out in a sec, so we're gonna take.
I just wanted to say one thing about that. You know, I think Jay is right. I would have loved to went to this, but I am on vacation. This is the Easter vacation. I mean, I'm not there. I'm vacationing with my family. And so
it's on Zoom. You can Zoom it from a foreign
yes,
country.
but I don't have, I'm not going to be at my desk. I only Zoom doing my desk. I don't even have, I have a SIM card. I can't do Zoom in a SIM card. I'm sorry. There's no way I can do this. I'm not going to be at a resort where I can access a computer.
So we'll try to, you know, for those that can attend, we'll try to update you. I'm gonna have to close out soon, so I have like one more person. Do I have two more people? I have John. And who else? Is it Nicole? Nicola? Who do I have? John.
Okay, I'll go.
Gotta make it quick.
Yes, I wanted to just bring up one thing that was mentioned earlier. Someone mentioned something about the population of New York going down, people traveling to or relocating to Texas and Florida. One of the reasons for that is because of the constrained housing supply. So I want to point out.
True developer.
I just want to point out that when you are constraining the housing supply, it doesn't make it easier for anybody, whether you are a person of means or a person who has less means. I think there's the reactions to not promote housing have impacts across the income spectrum. So I just want to make that point. I know it's maybe not a popular position.
Where's my reaction?
First of all, you're out of order and stop. Don't do that.
I'm sorry, I can't when developers
I'm gonna mute you. How about that? Come on.
I'm sorry. mute me, please.
Nicole, come on, Alicia now. Nicole, I'm sorry, John, did you finish?
I'm done. Yes, thank you for letting me speak.
Hi, question as to how to obtain some of the resources presented tonight, such as the presentation itself, as well as the plans that are coming from Albany. How would I obtain those resources? I don't really see that there is a portal or any kind of downloadable links on the CV9 website.
Okay, Nicole, that information will be available by emailing the board office. Mr. Douglas just made the presentation. He will be sending it to us sometime tomorrow morning. So you can just shoot over an email and we'll return the response with the links that are requested.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
Okay, I'm gonna have to close out. And I thank everyone for coming. Now, there's 2 people left. Now, if y'all can say whatever each of you 1 minute each, I'll allow it. If not, I'm done. Suki?
You muted, Suki.
Suki?
It's not important. Happy Easter, everyone.
It's important. Say your 1 minute. Go ahead.
So I'm going to try to make it to the Utica Crescent hearing, but if I don't, I wanted to say we should be looking at that old boys and girls high school field in terms of park resources. It's huge. It belongs to the DOE, but apparently it's not really open to the public. So maybe that's something to bring up to the Parks Committee.
Okay, the Parks Committee, okay. Esteban?
Yeah, just as a matter of best practices here, I just want to make sure that when we're speaking that we know who is speaking. I'm a tenant. I'm a member of the Crown Heights Tenant Union. That's who I'm here for. That's what I'm here about. If you are a developer or working with development and you're going to make commentary on development, then I would like to know that that's who you are.
Sure. Thank you. I want to thank everyone for coming, and I know we went a little over, but there's one thing I think we need an update on. I think Suki, you did get an answer from your letter. I don't know if it was discussed in your.
Okay, so I'll share it with the committee.
Okay,
they really
great.
didn't give us any information.
But they did, can you give the committee a copy of that letter? that
Yes,
was
I'm going to
back?
share it with I'm going to send it around to the committee. Yeah.
Right, because I want each of you to kind of like read it and then y'all
Yeah.
can discuss it at length in your meeting as to the answers that you got. Because I know
Yeah.
they referred you to different places, so I think your
Yeah.
committee really needs to discuss that at length.
Yeah.
Again, I want to thank everybody for coming. I want everybody to have a blessed holiday. And our next meeting will be on May the 9th, unless something happens, like my birthday. So,
Pat, you're a Gemini like me.
no, I'm Taurus.
Oh, you're Taurus? Okay.
Can't you
Okay.
tell? I need a motion to.
Yes.
Yes.
He said yes.
Yes.
Oh,
I just
okay.
want to wish everyone a happy holiday, a Hanukkah. I mean, is it Hanukkah?
Passover.
Passover, I'm sorry. Passover and Easter, and enjoy your vacation.
Ramadan.
Well, can I get a motion? True, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Can I get a second?
I second.
Happy
Good
holidays.
night, everyone.
Happy
Happy
holidays.
holidays.
See you later.
Bye.
Alicia, I'm coming to
Bye.
Alicia wherever she's going. Put me in your.
I'm going to Phuket in Bangkok.
Get out.
Ooh.
Really?
Yeah, over in Thailand. So you can come, but you can't do any Zoom. There's no Zoom. No
Have a
Zoom.
good vacation.
Good night, everyone.